Last year, the Ohio State Buckeyes fell short of making the college football playoff after losing to the Michigan Wolverines for the third consecutive season. Will they be able to recapture control of the Big Ten in 2024? Let's look into it. So, if you're looking at the strengths of this team, the overall talent of the roster is just going to jump out at you. Just across the board, maybe the most talented roster in the country, right up there with Georgia, Alabama. You could throw in an Oregon or a Texas, but it's mainly Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State have the most talented rosters, and Ohio State probably has the most proven talent on its roster. Um, Defensively, they're stacked with Caleb Downs transferring in at safety. Denzel Burke's going to be there at corner. Both should be future first-round NFL picks. Tui Malau, Jackson Sawyer on the edge, really good. And then you move to the offensive side of the ball. Judkins and Henderson form maybe the best running back duo in the country. Wide receiver, per usual, is loaded. You do lose Marvin Harrison Jr. there, but you return Emeka Egbuka, who could be a first-round pick. Jeremiah Smith's a true freshman, but I think he's the highest-rated true freshman recruit ever, according to 24/7 Sports. And he's freakish and could definitely have an instant impact, even as a true freshman. And then you have a bunch of other receivers who are former 5 stars, guys like Brandon Inniss or Carnell Tate, who could break out and start performing as top receivers. But getting into the weaknesses, and a weakness for Ohio State's not a very large weakness. For example, the O-line. It's definitely not going to be a bad offensive line, right? But last year it wasn't good enough, and you return most of those players. But so will they be able to take a step forward and become like a top 10 offensive line in the country? I'm not sure. But just because it's weak, it doesn't mean it's a bad offensive line. It'll definitely be above average. But to beat some of the top teams or to win a national championship, it might have to be a great offensive line or a really good offensive line. And I don't know that it will be that. Quarterback is what you got to look at. You bring in Will Howard, transferring in from Kansas State. And what people got to realize is that the fact of the matter is Will Howard transferred from Kansas State because he wasn't going to beat out Avery Johnson for the starting job. Now, maybe Avery Johnson is really, really good, and Will Howard is still good. But the fact is Ohio State's quarterback would not be starting at Kansas State. And that could be a problem. Because I think although his roster is very talented, at some point in the season, maybe it comes when you play in Michigan, maybe it comes against Oregon, maybe it comes against Penn State, maybe it comes in the Big Ten championship or in the college football playoff. I think a quarterback needs to be able to win you a game, and I don't know that Will Howard is going to be able to do that in the biggest moments. But so getting into the predictions, there are no concerns about Will Howard for these first 2 games, Akron and Western Michigan. Clear wins for Ohio State. But then you get a really early bye week. I don't like the bye week here at all. I think this is probably one of the worst spots you could get for a bye week. And then Marshall, though, you still crush. And then on the road in Michigan State. Let's just talk about the non-conference is a lot like what Michigan's had the past few years where they play basically no one. So Ohio State could be rolling, but you just still don't have a true gauge for how good they are because they played such easy teams. But now continuing the predictions, a road game against Michigan State should be a win. I do like Jonathan Smith as a hire there. I think the program's is already heading in the right direction with some of the transfers he brought in, including Aiden Childs from Oregon State coming along with him. But I think currently constructed, Michigan State's not near the level that Ohio State is. Now this Iowa game, I think at home, Iowa can maybe slow down the Ohio State offense. They have a really good defense, but Iowa's offense, even if it became like 10 times better, might not put up double-digit points against this Ohio State defense, which could be the best in the country. I don't think Iowa's gonna score. Maybe they won't score, but I don't think they'll hit double digits against Ohio State in this game. Next up, what I would say is probably Ohio State's toughest game of the year. a road game against Oregon. So I think when you're breaking this down, both teams are extremely talented. I think Oregon has a little bit better of an offensive line, but not quite as good at running backs. I think Oregon has the better receiving core, but not by much. Ohio State's is also very good. I think Oregon has a better quarterback. On the defensive side of the ball, Ohio State's going to have the better secondary, probably better linebackers, and then defensive line's pretty close. But Ohio State should have the better defense overall. But so it's so tight that I think home field advantage gives Oregon a slight edge. And then because I think the game's going to be close, it kind of comes down to who do I think is going to make the big plays. And when I look at these teams' quarterbacks, I saw Dylan Gabriel in the Red River Shootout have a game-winning drive, make all the big plays to beat Texas. I don't know that I think Will Howard can do that in this big of a spot, and that's why I'm going to go with the Oregon Ducks to defeat the Ohio State Buckeyes and give the Buckeyes their first loss of the season. Now your second bye is in a much better spot to regroup after a loss and then come back home to play what could be a pretty good Nebraska team this year, but not on the level of Ohio State. I think Raiola will really struggle against the Buckeyes defense, and it'll be, I think, a pretty convincing win for Ohio State before a tough road game against the Nittany Lions of Penn State. Now, this is a game that I think should be pretty tight. I think if you're Penn State, you're expecting Drew Aller is going to take a step forward. You have a really great running back duo of your own, Katron Allen, Nick Singleton. The O-line should be pretty good, although you lose first-round pick at tackle. No, receiver's not as good as you would like it, but it could be improved, and tight end is very good. And then the defense is maybe better than Ohio State's, but definitely in that same realm of great defenses. And you're at home. But I don't think this is the whiteout game. I think it's a 9 a.m. kickoff for me, or 12 a.m. local time. But so it's not going to be that crazy environment at night that the whiteout is, which kind of dampens Penn State's home field advantage maybe significantly. I haven't been to a whiteout, but just like through the TV screen, it feels like that gives such a distinct home field advantage, different than pretty much any other environment. But at the end of the day, when it came to making this prediction, I haven't seen James Franklin and Penn State be able to win this type of game. They consistently beat all the teams they're supposed to beat, but when it comes to beating the upper echelon of teams, they don't get it done. And I think that trend continues. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I need to see it from Penn State first before I buy in again. And so I think Ohio State beats Penn State again and then rolls against Purdue, who could be the worst team in the Big Ten this season. Northwestern was pretty good last year. I think they will not be quite as good, and even if they are, not nearly as good as Ohio State. Won't really challenge the Buckeyes at all. Same with Indiana. I think Indiana made a good hire with the James Madison coach, and will be better in the future, but definitely not on Ohio State level this year. And now Ohio State's sitting at 10-1, with the only game left being the game. So the storylines will be here. Ryan Day's lost the past 3 years. He's got to get it done. This is the game he has to win. And when I look at this, Ohio State and Michigan, similar level of defense. Both I think will compete to be the best in the country. I think Ohio State's got better running backs. I think I have better receivers. Potentially a better quarterback, although it's a little bit uncertain. O-line, not sure who's going to have the better O-line. But overall, Ohio State's more talented, more experienced. I think a better team this year, and they're at home. But with these past 3 years, there's a lot of times where coming into the game, I could have said Ohio State's more talented, or they're more experienced, or one of the times they were at home, and they've always had the edge on perimeter talent. But so I think there's a lot of times you watch the game and you're like, oh yeah, Ohio State should win this if we look at the edges. But there's something they haven't been able to get over. And similar to how Penn State, it's hard for me to pick Penn State to beat Ohio State, or how it would have been hard to pick Michigan over Ohio State before this 3-year stretch. Yes, at some point Ohio State's going to break the streak, but I'm going to pick Michigan to continue it for a 4th year in a row. And Ohio State A very disappointing season for them of 10-2, but I think it will still be good enough to get into the playoff, and the season could potentially be saved there. If not, though, Ryan Day could be in serious trouble. Alright guys, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to check out my other videos on other teams' season predictions for 2024, as well as my full-length videos for entire conference predictions and playoff predictions coming soon. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.